All right, what's going on, Steve? How you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is exciting. You've become such a close friend and mentor of mine over the last couple of years, and I always enjoy the conversation that we have. So I've been looking forward to this one and kind of getting to chat and sharing some of our stories with the audience.
Yeah, it's great. Well, you picked the hottest day in Pittsburgh. So I don't know how much of a friend I am. It's 8,000 degrees. You had me walk over here.
Well, I always, it's funny because in the wintertime I hate Pittsburgh because it's too cold, and in the summertime I bitch about Pittsburgh because it's too damn hot.
Right,
so
right.
I guess I'm probably the big problem.
It could be
here.
the issue, right?
So no, I appreciate you being on, and I think as I've gotten to know you so much over the last 4 years now, I think 3 or 4 years by now. And really seeing what you've done with the city of Pittsburgh, you've helped me connect with so many people throughout the city, and then learning about what you've done in the past and trying to change Point Park and the direction that you're taking this as the dean of the business school. It's really cool to see this because as I went to Duquesne University and I've done more after college with Point Park than I have with my alma mater. And it's just unique and refreshing to see that you're one of the few people I've talked to in higher ed that actually sees a big change happening in education. And I think a big part of that is you guys cater to the direction that the student really needs, wants, and what's appealing to them. And that's something that I've picked up on from our conversations in the direction that you guys are going. So a lot of credit goes to you because I think that's a big change as education is going to be changing a lot over the next several years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we've talked about this. I've measured success not just are you graduating in 4 years, but more importantly, are you getting a job in your chosen field? And how you get a job in your chosen field, I think, is going out there and doing the work. Yeah, whether it's internships, co-ops, volunteer, part-time, full-time work. It's all about getting students to be immersed in industry and go out there and learn from those that are actually doing it.
Yeah.
And I know we'll talk a little bit about COVID and how higher ed is going to have to pivot. And I think they're going to pivot right to a place where Point Park and the Rowland School of Business has been for quite a while.
Yeah. So what you came on 3 years ago to Point Park?
Dean 4 years ago. And I've been with Point Park now, 17 years.
Okay.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah. So let's just, I guess now since, we talked about the length there, let's just start back. I mean, our conversations, I know a lot about your history, your background and everything. So if you can kind of just kick it off and start that journey because it's an interesting transitional phase to where you are now and things that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I grew up in Boston, went to Duquesne undergrad. And the reason why I chose Duquesne is because I wanted to work in sports. I wanted to work for a baseball team. And I was a student athlete. I ran cross country and track. And the coach at Duquesne promised me an internship with the Pirates if I enrolled. And the other schools that had recruited me, weren't able to make such an offer. So I came to Duquesne, wound up working for the Pirates for about 2 years in their PR media relations department. Then went and worked in minor league baseball in Johnstown, PA. Was there as an assistant general manager for a year, and then decided that I wanted to go to law school. I decided that I wanted to get on the agent side of the house.
Did you know you wanted to go to law school growing up at all? Was that
no? It was never a thing. I went to Duquesne for business, and I was dead set on working for a baseball team and being general manager or being in the development office. Had a great experience with the Pirates in PR. When you're in PR, you get to meet everybody because everybody in the office wants to know the statistics, wants to know who's hitting, who's not hitting, why are we pitching so terribly, and so I really made the best of that opportunity and got to know everybody in that office, from the head of marketing to finance to development to our general manager, who was Cam Bonifay at the time. Yep. And Cam gave me great advice. Cam said, there are so many people that want to do what I do. What you really need to do is try to set yourself apart. So he said, go get some real baseball administration experience and then go get a degree or do something that most of us don't have. So that led me to Johnstown and then led me to Pitt Law.
Yeah. So whenever you're at the Pirates organization and working around and meeting all these people, I think a lot of the times, I try to look at people's careers and how they flourish, grow, and succeed in life and everything, and making the most of whatever opportunity that you have. I think that's such a unique tip for people that are listening, or people that are just trying to grow in business is, hey, I'm in this position right now. How can I take as much advantage of this opportunity? And as you know more than anybody, and as something I'm learning along, the network is so important.
Yep.
So to see at such a young age that you started doing that and understanding the value of that is probably a testament to why you're where you are.
Yeah, I tell students all the time that, I asked a lot of questions. And I said, when you go work for any type of organization, right, ask questions. Be the first one in, be the last one to leave. Make sure that everyone at that organization knows what you want to do or what you think you want to do. So, back when I was at the Pirates, I would stop into, back then it was Steve Greenberg. He was our marketing director. And I would walk in and say, hey, it's hat night. How does this happen?
Yeah.
How much does it cost? How much do we charge the sponsor? Walking into Cam Bonifay's office, and I would always see he had all kinds of names on his board, and they would change every day. Mr. Bonifay, why did that name move from here to there? Explain to me the Rule 5, exemption. Explain to me the amateur draft. I'd walk into our, media team, right? Why is this? And was very inquisitive, and let them know that even though I was doing PR, that isn't really what I wanted to do. It was my step in the door. Mm-hmm. And I tell students all the time that you just got to get in. You just got to get in, and then just make sure that everybody knows how hard you work, everybody knows how committed you are, and educate them on what it is that you want to do, and then ask them, how did you get to where you are? What advice would you give me, right? How can I one day do what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, and I think two things there. One is the first takeaway is that people love talking about what they've been through.
Yep.
And I think people who really care about other people love it even more, because they can see certain things in somebody that they're talking to that they may have seen them at that age and whatnot. Right. I would assume that probably plays into that too.
Yeah, I tell students all the time that 99% of folks that have made something of themselves, I believe, are willing to give back to students and give advice. Let's face it, we all love talking a little bit about ourselves, sharing our stories, and when somebody that's, a student comes to that person and asks for advice, you're not a threat to them, right? That student isn't looking to take your job, right? They're not necessarily looking for a job. They're just looking for advice.
Yeah.
And I tell kids all the time, use the power of the internet to go identify somebody in a position you aspire to be in and send them a note. And you'd be surprised how many get back.
Yeah.
And you build that network.
Yeah.
Because once again, those that have achieved a modicum of success want to give back. They want to share. And it's just a matter of students, putting it on themselves to go and track that person down.
Yeah. So when I was in college, I played football and for the first 2 years. And then after that, I ended up working and bouncing around at like bars and restaurants, and I was in like the nightlife entertainment industry. I know that whenever I had internships or worked previously, I didn't grasp the value of doing that networking side, or maybe I just naturally did it and didn't really pick up on it, but I know I didn't care as much. And I think the cool thing about what we're seeing in today's society is, and maybe this is my perception because I'm more focused now than I was then, but is that it seems like people are more aware at a younger age, or they at least are more attentive to want to do different things at a younger age. And I don't know if that's accurate whatsoever. Maybe because social media and the entrepreneurial role that social media plays in a lot of people's lives, they tend to try to learn more at a younger age because there's more information out there, or more easily accessible information out there at their fingertips.
Yeah, I've noticed a shift probably within the last 4 or 5 years. Students or parents would come as prospective students, and the first question I would always get is, how much is this going to cost me, and when is my son or daughter going to be done? I've noticed a shift where now the questions are, what is my son or daughter going to be doing? Right? What's that job title? Who are they going to be working for? Right? And what's the best path to get them to where they want to go? So much more focused on the job, on the duties associated with that task, and then aligning their school, with that. And it's true. And you heard this, I'm sure, at Duquesne. I did too. It's all about who you know. And I didn't, believe that at the time. I thought, well, if you're a good person, and no, it's all about who you know.
Yeah.
Even lawyers, right? Even graduating law school, back in the day, yeah, okay, you graduate law school, you pass the bar, you get a job. You graduate with an accounting degree, you pass your CPA, you get a job. That's not the case anymore.
Yep.
It's all about who you know. And I tell students when I even go to high schools, I say it's all about who you know, and who you know is on you, right? So start building that network, and you can start right now with with an email, with a Facebook post, with a tweet, right?
Do you notice that the students now are more receptive to that suggestion?
Yeah, because they've grown up. That's how they communicate.
Yep.
Right. I mean, for us, it was writing a note, pen, paper. This is how these kids communicate. Right. This is how they engage with each other, is via their phone, via social media. And so I say all the time, if you can learn how to use social media, not just as a toy, but a tool, you can be very powerful.
Yeah, that's something that's and me, Derek, and Chris, we were talking about this last week. Is and actually a friend of ours, their daughter's I think 14 or 15 or so, and is going through some difficult times, bullying and different things, and because of social media.
Yep.
And it's amazing the power of social media, good and bad.
Right.
And it's kind of scary that it is that polarizing as well, especially as a child's developing, especially, even into college, you're still a kid. You don't really know anything. As much as I want to think that I knew all these things back then, and, my dad would say, do this, do that, and I would just kind of blatantly ignore it.
Right.
He was right with everything he suggested, but it is amazing that the opportunity at 10 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, there are people that are that age that are doing businesses and growing and using their platform to. I mean, there's a kid that makes millions of dollars opening presents on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's such a polarizing product to have the access to.
Yeah, I know it's amazing what young folks are how they're able to leverage it. And that was one of the downsides, though, about this pandemic, was that's all they had. Young people lost that engagement and that personal touch with people. And so all they had was what they were seeing on their phone. And let's face it, you're only going to post good things, right? And if you are in a set of circumstances where, it's not all good, right? It's hard. And so I'm thankful that I'm not growing up, honestly, as a young child today, because the pressures with social media are tough.
Yeah. Even whenever, I started my business in 2015. The first year or two, there were a lot of times where I would get hidden messages, fake messages, fake profiles that were pretty negative. And I was a 28-year-old, 29-year-old man at that time, young man, whatever. And it was hard. Like there were times where I would just question that. And I'd be like, well, what the hell? What did I do?
Right. Take it personally.
Yeah. And I'm now at a point where it stings sometimes, right? And then you just brush it off. But I couldn't imagine the pressures as a younger kid to go through that, because there were times I had to call a couple of my friends that were in the WWE and say, like, how do you handle this?
Right.
What are you doing? You just ignore it.
Yeah, and you had the advantage of being older,
right?
I'm sure having some confidence in what you were doing. If you're a young adolescent, that's a tough age.
Yeah,
right. I'm sure many of them don't have a lot of confidence. They haven't lived life experiences. And they're just not quite sure of how good, they are, right? And they're not really firmly set on what their, vision for success is.
Yeah.
So it's a real challenge.
Sure.
We spend a good bit of time, at the college level, talking about, of course, the importance of social media, but then also, you got to be very careful what you put out there. Employers look.
Do you guys review that with your students and stuff?
Yeah, employers look. And it's very and that stuff doesn't go away, right? There's always a footprint, and so that's what I kind of back to my background. After law school, I went and started a small sports marketing agency where I work with professional athletes, and that's when social media was really coming to the forefront. And I would tell these guys, people are looking. And, go ahead and post whatever you want, right? I'm not going to get in the way of freedom of speech and expression, but just understand that, there are things that you could put out there that could cost you an endorsement, could cost you a lot of money. But they just had to be prepared to understand that. And many of them, are not.
Yeah. Are you able to share the list of clients that you worked with, some of the bigger names?
Yeah, sure. No, so after law school, went and worked for a sports marketing agency. We actually were located over in PNC Park. We had office space there when the ballpark opened. And our niche was retired athletes. So we would align retired baseball players, hockey players, football players with corporate America. So back then, we were the sports marketing agency of record for companies like Jim Beam, Kraft, Keebler. And as a young, aspiring lawyer, my role was to not just identify the talent, but then also help execute the contract. And then one would wind up actually, doing the deal, whether it's a photo shoot, whether it's a personal appearance. And I did that for about 10 years and realized pretty quickly that a lot of these athletes, former athletes, they weren't covered by collective bargaining. They weren't very good with their money, and they were really looking for opportunities, and there was a market. And so I left that agency to start my own, and I was focused on current athletes. So I had folks like Willie Parker with the Steelers, James Harrison, Bryant McFadden. Did a lot of work with.
I didn't know you worked with him too.
BMAC, yeah. He's down in, I think, doing Florida State games.
No kidding.
Yeah, down in Florida.
Do you talk to him still?
I haven't in a while.
Yeah.
Ryan Clark. And so my whole focus with my agency was trying to help these guys understand that they were a business. And we could move the needle with corporate America by aligning themselves with these companies to try to sell more goods and services. And so we did everything from, commercials, endorsements, the autograph circuit. And my goal was to try to generate enough money for them where they wouldn't have to touch their game check. And then more importantly, from day one, my focus with them was, what do you want to do when this is over? What do you want to do when this career is over? And 9 times out of 10, I'd get the same response. Well, I'm different, right? I'm going to play 10 years. I never got hurt in high school. I never missed a game in college. I take care of my body. And I would say, the stats don't lie. The average life expectancy of an NFL player is 3 years. Mm-hmm. The average retirement age in hockey is 27, right? So it's not going to happen. And so I said, let's use the power that you have, the significance you have as a current athlete to set forth your post-career. So if you want to get into broadcasting, let's go do that. If you want to get into real estate, let's go call those people that are actually doing it, and you can get a meeting because you are the starting center or whatever. And, I tell the story all the time about Ryan, where Ryan Clark, I asked him, I said, what do you want to do when this is over? And he said, I want to get into broadcasting. And I had heard that from probably everybody.
Right. That's probably an easy
one. I want to work on ESPN.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, are you prepared to work at it? And Ryan said, yeah. And so, he did a weekly radio show. He did a weekly television show.
Was that while he was with you as well?
While he was with me, while the Steelers. Yeah, we had a weekly radio show at Nakama. Became a huge connoisseur of sushi, which was great.
Yeah.
He had a weekly TV show. He worked a lot actually with Bob Pompiani. Pomp was a great supporter of his and would help Ryan work off the teleprompter and work on voice inflection and just, become a much better presence on air. And then I remember Ryan did it on his own. He reached out to ESPN and said, hey, there's a bye week coming up. I'd like to come up there and,
That's cool. I didn't know
it.
That. Yeah.
And so he did that for, quite a while. No money, paying his own way. Then when retirement came from the Redskins, he, jumped at the opportunity and, he's on TV all the time and just does an amazing job.
He's awesome.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
And he's awesome because he works at it. He's awesome because he gets it. He does his research. He's well respected. He's hardworking, and he strives to do better every day. But he put that career together because he said, "Hey, as a Steeler, I'm going to use my significance to try to set up my second career." And it's a lot easier to get a radio show or TV show as a current Steeler than it is once you retire.
Yeah,
right.
That's a very good point.
And so he worked at it. He worked at it. BMAC did the same thing. I mean, BMAC, we had the TV show down at Sports Rock for years. And, that's a grind. That was their off days Tuesday, and he did that every Tuesday and then was able to parlay that into, other opportunities and, still is involved in media, with Florida State, his alma mater.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, like you said, it's on their off day, right? And they take a beating throughout the week. The games are brutal for them.
Yep.
And to commit to giving up that one day a week that you really had for your personal time. Some guys travel for it. Some guys see family, and to have somebody with the wherewithal to say, "Hey, this is the time for me to invest in that," is really cool to hear.
Yeah, Tuesdays is the off day. Now, the schedule's so crazy that some days you have a game on Monday. Well, Tuesday's the show. Some days you have games on Thursday. Well, Tuesday's the show, and you're committing to something. 16 weeks.
Yeah.
Win or lose. And so that takes a real commitment. And there are a lot of guys who will say, yeah, I'd love to do it. But then when push comes to shove, right, they're not doing it.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate to work with some guys that got it, worked hard, and, more than honored their commitment.
How did you, whenever you left the sports marketing firm and start your own, as we have a lot of business owners that listen here, and, for me personally, it was very difficult.
Yeah.
Were there any difficult times for that, or was there an easy transitional switch for you because you came from that world?
There's an easy transitional switch, which was we're closing the office in Pittsburgh.
So
you can, Steve would love to have you come to Chicago, but I had my son was, I think, 1 at the time.
Yep.
And
it's never a convenient time.
No, and we just bought a house in Dormont. The typical Dormont house, right? 4 bedrooms, fireplaces in every bedroom. I love Chicago. I love coming in for our quarterly meetings, but to go from a huge Victorian house to a closet with a 1-year-old, I wasn't interested. And I was in my, maybe late 20s, early 30s, and I said, you know what? I'm young enough to take a chance on myself, and if I fail, I'm sure I could go and call them and they'll hire me.
Yeah.
But I said, I'm willing to take a chance. I had a 6-month severance or whatever it was at the time, and I said, I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone. I know enough people. I'm connected enough that I'm going to give this a shot. And if in 6 months it doesn't work, I had a law degree. So worst case scenario, I could go practice, law in the traditional way. And, just really, and how it all happened was I just helped the city with the Bassmaster Classic and the 84 Lumber Golf event. And
which is a huge event. Massive event.
It was huge, incredibly successful. So I did all the marketing, sponsorship. And honest to gosh, Willie Parker was an undrafted rookie free agent for the Steelers. The Steelers came down to North Carolina where Willie was a senior. They were not there to recruit Willie. They were there to recruit somebody else. They signed Willie because he was the fastest kid they had seen, and they just wanted to bring him to training camp and just kind of run circles. Yep. And then, football's a tough business. I think back then Deuce Staley and Jerome got hurt, and Willie was next up. And I think first game against Cleveland, he rushed for, over 230 yards.
How did you connect with him, though?
Well, so Albert Avery was a 25-year veteran of IBM. Albert was Willie's agent. Willie grew up in a small town called Clinton, North Carolina. And Albert was a friend of the family and told Mrs. Parker and Willie that, he would take care of him. No agent experience per se, and he was Willie's agent. And Willie burst onto the scene. And I remember Albert called me, it must have been on a Monday or Tuesday, and said, hey, I got your name from the city of Pittsburgh. I'm hoping that you could help my client. And I said, well, who's your client? He said, Willie Parker. I said, oh my gosh, yeah, I heard he had a great game. And he goes, well, will you meet with us? I said, sure. And, then the rest was history. So because I had done good work on behalf of the city with this fishing tournament, with the 84 Lumber Golf Classic, which was the only PGA event in the Commonwealth, whoever Albert called at the city said, got this guy Tanzilli, maybe he can help you.
So did the 84 Lumber Classic and the Bassmaster Championship were your first events that you did as a solo entrepreneur?
We were kind of in this tweener period. They had come through the other agency, but that was getting shifted out, and we were kind of transitioning, I guess sunsetting the business, let's say.
And they just knew you were still in Pittsburgh. So.
Still that I knew that I was in Pittsburgh.
So he was your first
client. And then how Ryan came to be was Ryan. So Ryan was with the Giants and then came to the Steelers. And Ryan lived in the same complex of Willie. And, Ryan was looking for somebody to help him. And Willie said, you got to work with Steve. James Harrison was a client because Willie did a deal with Verizon when Fios was starting.
Yep.
So I had Willie on a whole bunch of billboards and buses. And
I remember. Yeah.
Fast Willie.
Yeah, I remember that.
James got upset because he thought he was better looking than Willie and should be on buses. So he went to Willie and said, I should be on buses, not you. Who are you working with? And, Willie said, here, call this Tanzilli guy.
So we'll go back to real quick. It's all about who you know.
Yeah.
And this is one of those exact examples of why you just, you do good business, you take care of people, you do things the right way. And when you treat people well, you become first of mind to them when conversation comes up.
Yep.
And the only reason all that stuff transpired is because you networked, you took care of people, and you did things the right way.
Absolutely.
No other reason.
No other reason.
Yeah.
No other reason. And I remember one of the greatest compliments Ryan gave me was, and it's a sad state of affairs, was he said, you know what makes you different? I said, no, what? He goes, you're a good guy and we can trust you. I was like, wow, that's a bad state of affairs for the agent world, but and I was like, well, of course you can trust me. Like what? Yep. And then you start to realize, and you've seen it, there are a lot of folks out there that don't do things the right way. And I tell students this all the time. You're going to run into folks that are cutting corners or grabbing that low-hanging fruit, right? Or getting paid on things that, I don't know. And don't get jealous, don't get frustrated because, in the end, at some point, right, it's going to come undone, particularly in Pittsburgh. It's such a small town.
Yeah.
Such a small town.
This is one of those cities that people don't understand it. And with our fashion show, I had a couple athletes that I work with that have come every year, and they've now since seen like, holy hell, this is a small town. Yeah. There's no other city like it in the country. And to my experience, I've traveled all over. Everybody knows everybody, or now in today's world, everybody can easily find something out about everybody. And, I think it's hard when you're growing a business or when you're working or trying to compete with things, because the instant gratification or the shortcut is very appealing for a lot of people, and I understand why.
Right.
But it's never the right answer.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I have a very difficult time, and as you're talking about that, I know people right off the top of my mind. It's like this person, that person. They're all the people that are shortcut takers, and you look at what they're doing. And one guy in particular, I'm not going to bring up his name, but he's in the sports world as well, and tells one group of people, hey, I work with this person, this person, this person, and there's no association with anything at all with them. And I know a lot of people that talk a good game and talk a big game, but they're not people that are trustworthy individuals. Right. And I never understood that logic, because you get exposed. And maybe for the few percentage of a circumstance that you'll be successful with that, how good does that even feel?
Right. Yeah, and that's just never been my game.
Yeah. So as you're working with these athletes, getting them on board, what was the process like with you trying to find sponsorship for them? What was the, opportunities for them? Was that a difficult task for you, since it wasn't new to you, but it was?
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult. I mean, every sports agent will tell a client that they have all these great connections and they're going to get them cars and movie appearances and all kinds of money to be on TV and endorse products. All agents say that, but very few actually can deliver, because it's hard, right? It's hard to find the company's the decision maker. That takes a lot of time and effort, and it takes a lot of doing. So I had the advantage that I had worked with corporate America for close to probably a decade. I had the advantage of understanding, what they were looking for in terms of return on investment, what they were looking for in terms of building out, marketing platforms. And then it was a matter of taking the clients and aligning them with, kind of the core mission and vision of these companies. And then, putting these guys in positions to succeed, right? So some of them, they're humans, they're people. So some of the guys were incredible public speakers, could walk into a room and command a presence. And then other guys, that was the last thing they wanted to do, but they're really good one-on-one, right? There were guys that loved being out and talking to the public, and engaging with people. And then there were guys of mine that just they hated it. Mm-hmm. So why would I build a promotion around, hey, you're going to do all these public appearances and then talk to 1,000 employees on stage, if that's not what you're good at? And so that took a little bit of time to kind of really figure out what these guys were good at, what they were comfortable at, and then being honest with the client. And I had clients say, well, it's a deal breaker. I need them to speak at our annual event that has 5,000 people. I'm like, well, you know what? He's just not comfortable doing it, and I'm not going to put him in a position where really he's destined to fail.
Yeah.
So either we figure something else out, or you know what? We're just going to have to, move on.
Did you ever have a situation that didn't go according to plan, or was like a learning experience for you for a client in a position like that at all, or were you pretty good at regulating that before the opportunity really you made a decision on that?
Yeah, I think there's always, events, nothing goes, smoothly, but I don't recall anything that really was out of the realm.
Yeah.
One of the things I always made a point of doing is having my clients sign the contracts. So it wasn't just me. So I wanted the guys to understand, okay, let's go. This is what you're agreeing to, making it up. It's 3 appearances. You're getting paid X on this date. Here's what they're going to do. Here's how they're going to use your name and likeness, right? This is what time you got to get here. Those kind of.
So some agents, they
sign on behalf of their client.
So they have the power of attorney.
And then they tell, their client, hey, this is, So I always felt having the athlete sign it also gave an extra layer of accountability too. Because once again, it's a long week. They're getting beat up. When I say, hey, I've got a 2-hour appearance, wherever, South Hills Village, right, in 3 months on a bye week, that sounds great. That's great. Perfect. Well, when that bye week comes, right, and maybe the team is 4-8, right, and they want to go home, and home isn't here, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit, well, your name's on this document as well. So yeah, there was some of those discussions, but that happens across the board, right?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's challenging. I mean, juggling personalities and especially athletes, it's difficult because they're put on such a pedestal all the time.
Yep.
And when you find the ones that are just down to earth, appreciative, and genuine on a lot of things, and most of them are, it makes those situations a lot easier to deal with.
Right.
You face them head on, and you just kind of handle it and move on, which is good.
Yeah, they're good guys, and so many of them were able to use their platform, to make good.
Right,
to help other people, and you've done these. If you go to a children's hospital tour, and meet the kids there. I mean, that puts so much in perspective.
Yeah.
And that was probably some of the proudest things for us was making a difference in a lot of young kids' lives. We tried to raise a lot of money for different charities over the years, and seeing the difference it makes and just seeing a smile that, a kid or somebody that's suffering has when they meet a current athlete, right? And knowing that, I had a little bit to do with it, right? Was really rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really rewarding. And then how the Point Park thing started was, I had my little agency working with these guys, and I just couldn't find people to come work for me because everyone wanted to do what I was doing because it was cool. But they didn't understand this was a bottom line driven business, and I needed folks that had that professional mindset. So, 17 years ago, I guess, I ran into the former president of Point Park, and Dr. Catherine Henderson was looking for a bright idea to kind of revamp the business school, and a colleague and I really pitched this. There should be a program in sports, arts, and entertainment that teaches kids it's a business. It should be taught by industry professionals. You should have a course in your major every term. Internships should be a requirement of graduation because it's all about who you know, and it should be a business degree. Accounting, econ, finance, business degree.
Yep.
So if you don't get your dream job as a agent or you don't get your dream job working for the Steelers, you can walk into corporate America doing just about anything. And she told my colleague at the time, well, that sounds great, go do that. So we were able to put a team together, got a feasibility grant, and launched the program. And to this day, that's the fundamentals of the sports arts and entertainment program at Point Park, that, the faculty are industry professionals. You take a course in your major every semester. I don't know if it was this way at Duquesne, but, I remember my kid across the hall was a finance major, and he didn't get to take a finance course till like junior year. And by that time, oh my gosh, it's too late to tell you that I didn't like it.
Yeah.
We made internships in that experiential learning a requirement of graduation. And that's became a tremendously successful program, and then became dean of the business school 4 years ago. And that's our focus now with all of our majors, is that it is all about getting our students immersed in corporate America, getting them to be taught by those that are doing it, and really also trying to get Pittsburgh back on its feet.
Yeah. Did whenever the opportunity to move into the position as dean of the business school, how did that kind of fester, and how did that opportunity present itself?
Yeah, Point Park, we hadn't had deans for a while, and so we were running more of an academic, it's called a chair model, and so we didn't have a dean for probably 3 or 4 years. And the faculty in my business school unanimously voted to go to the president's office and say, we think Steve should lead us. We wrote a strategic plan collectively, and they said that, we want Steve to be our dean. We want Steve to implement the strategic plan. We believe in, the vision. And so, the president said, all right, we're going to go back to the dean model. Yeah,
so there were no deans previous?
No deans. We used to. And, we have a school of education, school of comm, we have a conservatory, we have a business school. Like most institutions, we had deans forever. And then, over a stretch of probably 4 or 5 years, deans left for whatever reason, and we just never replaced them. And then we just went on without a dean model. And then I was the first, I guess you could say, new dean.
Yep.
And it took a lot of catching up because we didn't have that external voice. When I it took every bit of probably the first 2 years of my tenure just to re-educate businesses downtown that, Point Park did have a business school.
Sure.
And we do have quality students, and we want to make a difference in Pittsburgh, and we want to try to get our hardworking students, working with these companies. And, and then the last 2 years have been spent, fundraising, and we've got a lot of great initiatives that we're excited that we're going to be able to announce here by the end of the summer.
Yeah, I was going to ask, some of the changes that you've seen from 4 years ago till now, and the direction of the school in general, things that you have on the future horizon. Are you able to talk about any of those things, or even some of the changes that when you took over, what was the priority? Hey, we need to tweak this, and this, and go in this direction.
Yeah, I think a big thing, I inherited culture wasn't very good. I think that's something that, folks many times estimate how important culture is. So
are you talking
within the faculty? Yeah, within the employees. So we had a very low sense of worth as employees. People really, they didn't enjoy each other, and so that took some time. That took some time to work with faculty who really needed to move on, help them do that. More importantly, the charge was to bring in good, engaged faculty to replace those. And then kind of get back to where we were, which is, we're here to serve students. We're here to serve students. We're here to try to make a difference in their lives. This is not a bad gig, right? And so let's appreciate that, and let's be focused on each and every day trying to provide our students with what they need to know to be employable.
Yeah.
And, a little bit less book and more real world exposure. And, today's, end of June, right? I don't want faculty necessarily to say, okay, this is what I teach on this day for the last 20 years, right? Let's talk about how what's happening in the world affects students, right? There's so many current events every day. And if you can weave that into your curriculum, into your lectures, you're just going to make students much better positioned, to be employable.
I guess I really never thought about the perspective of, I know company culture is so important in traditional business, but in the untraditional case of higher education, you don't realize that there's still teachers or employees that are going to work to provide a service, right? Or, to educate, the students and whatnot. I never thought about that from being a standpoint of they really need to have the buy-in, because if they dislike each other or dislike whatever and going to work becomes a chore to them, that's going to trickle down to the students, and that's a big problem.
Yeah, students are the customers, right? And if you're a customer and you go into a store or or go to a location, you can sense, right?
Oh yeah.
It oozes out that maybe this isn't a good environment. So the first thing you got to do is fix the culture, and have your employees want to be there, want to go the extra mile, and fulfill the mission of the organization, whatever that is. And our mission is to serve students.
Yeah, that's really cool actually, because if you look at a lot of the teachers, or I think back to the teachers that I had growing up, and there were some that were just there forever. And my brother is 4 or 5 years older than me, and I remember there was a couple teachers in high school that I remember when he was picking his classes and figuring all that stuff out, it was like, oh, this lady's been here for 30 years. Her class is super easy. She just doesn't care about this. And you realize that it's not just like a teacher that with that mindset. It's me as a student, I'm going to lose out on a year of my time to actually benefit from whatever this course may be. And it actually hurts you more than it helps you, because it's an easy class. And so that's a kind of a different perspective. I literally never even thought of that, because I didn't look at higher education as a business other than the expense of going there, not how it operates, which is obviously pretty expensive as well. So,
well, and everything's intertwined. You don't think about it as a student, but we all need to know what are we teaching in accounting, what are we teaching in our IT courses, what are we teaching in our HR courses, because they all build upon each other. And if I'm that teacher teaching the senior level course, I really have to have an idea as to what do these students know when they walk in, right? So that we can make sure that they are well-rounded. And how you do that is open communication, right? And you got to take the walls down, you got to be transparent. And I'm never going to critique an accounting professor, because I can't do accounting,
right?
But I want to have an idea of what they're teaching, and that helps me build a foundation and framework for the things that I want to make sure that I cover. And then there are things that I now know I don't need to cover. When I would teach the law classes, at the upper level, I taught a sports law class for a long time. I needed to know at the 200 level law class, did we spend time on how to file a case? Did we spend time on the difference, in Court of Common Pleas, Supreme Court? So that way I know, do I need to cover that, or can I go on to other, materials?
Yeah. Yeah, and even the coordination between, different teachers and whatnot, has that been difficult for the group, or now that you have a good set group of people?
We got a really great group of faculty.
Yeah.
They're excited to work with each other. We really do have a good group. Couldn't be prouder of who we have, and they really are just making such a difference with students. We're in such a good place now.
Whenever I was at the event, that was for that center, new center you guys were opening.
Yep.
Doreen Saletti was there, and I had her in college. I remember seeing her, and she was at the time I was there. She was probably a relatively newer professor there. But she was awesome, super engaging. And then whenever I got to see her again, it was really cool, because I said, okay, Steve knows who he's bringing in at this point. And it was a testament of not knowing you then, but knowing her and seeing her kind of climb and grow to move on to Point Park is really awesome.
Yeah, no, she's amazing. We will be announcing that we're going to be opening a new sales and innovation center in the lobby of the business school. And one of the deals I made with Doreen to get her to come to Point Park was that I'd figure out a way to get this thing funded and opened, and it's going to be a tremendous asset, not just for our students, but for the community. So we'll make sure we invite you to the next event that should happen end of July. But I think you owe her a couple papers, I think, David, from Duquesne.
From Duquesne, probably.
I think,
I still
Did
never
you pass the course?
Barely.
Because when you walked in, she gave a look like,
So the one time in marketing class, I have to tell the story. I have a sweating problem, and I was at that time. GNC sold pretty much anything you can get, right? And there was this thermo something that I was taking to try to lose weight while I was playing football. Well, I took it, and I was giving a presentation in her class, and she literally stopped me mid-class or mid-presentation and had to hand me a roll of paper towels and asked if I needed to sit down. So, I didn't do very well in college. In her class, I'm sure I didn't either, because it was a part of going to class is going to class, and that wasn't my forte.
So that explains the 6 towels you have in front of you.
I need them everywhere I go.
But Doreen is a super person. That comes down to, it doesn't matter if you're a faculty member or an employee. It's about hiring the right people.
Yeah, she's great.
Hiring the right people.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you able to talk about the lab and the things that you guys are doing there? Just to kind of
a little bit. Yeah. So, we're going to open it's a 1,300 square foot sales and innovation center in our lobby. It's going to have a conference room, multi-purpose classroom space. And then what's really great is it's going to have individual role-playing sales training rooms. So we'll be able to have audio and video capture. It's things that our students can use to help them prepare for interviews. We have a big sales and marketing component, so to help our students become better salespeople. And the audio video capture is cool because students could come in, do role-playing, and then we can go in to the video and connotate, hey, this is what you maybe should have, the angle should have taken. I'm also going to use this as an external facing opportunity to help those in Pittsburgh. So companies that are looking for sales training, right, can use our space. Folks that live and work in Pittsburgh, can come in and work on interview techniques, work on role playing. We have a veterans center. We partnered with Pittsburgh Hires Veterans and Jack Wagner's group. And I envision this space really helping many of the veterans that live in Uptown and the Lower Hill to get them to come in and use this facility to prepare for interviews or to help in role-playing situations. Have it all, captured on video, audio, and really work with them. Okay. So it's going to be something that we're really, super excited about.
Awesome.
We're also going to be announcing pretty soon a center dedicated to social equity and education. I think what so many young people throughout the country, but in Pittsburgh are lacking are programmatic skills. So we're going to focus a lot on the Black community, high school students, and help them with skills that we all need to know to succeed. So whether it's personal finance, whether it's personal branding, understanding the power of the internet, spend a lot of time educating high school students on how to apply for college, understanding the financial aid, avenues. Spend time talking about the importance of savings and credit and debit. How do you rent an apartment? How do you someday, buy a home? How do you lease or buy a car? We're going to have a good mentoring program with these young folks to align them with college kids. And so my hope is that I'd love for this group to go to Point Park. I really just want to give them the confidence and skills that I think we all need to really help them.
Yeah.
And that's something I heard from the community is that if you can help with the programmatic elements, this will really make a difference.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing some things in that area quite a bit. Got a nice grant from a company and then a just tremendous individual that's really committed, to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And one of the things I really try hard to do with our business school is leverage our location. So right there on Boulevard of the Allies and Wood Street. And so, the Center for Veterans Excellence came to be because Pittsburgh Hires Vets is out on Banksville Road. And, our tremendous public transportation system, these poor individuals may have to take 3 buses to go from Uptown to Banksville.
Yeah.
And so let's leverage our location of being downtown to try to connect, veterans. And there is a tremendous percentage of, veterans in Pittsburgh that are homeless. And so let's try to help them, get back on their feet and become employable. And so using our location as a way to get them to come on our campus, come into our business school, be mentored by Pittsburgh Hires Vets, have them engage with our faculty, right? Engage with our students. We've done that now for, take out COVID, so really a year solid, and we're really hoping to, move that forward. And then the other initiative I'm super proud of is we have a Women in Industry initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of our students are female, And they came to me 3 years ago and said, Steve, it's great that you introduced us to all these great people in corporate America. And they tell us, how do you get a job at BNY, or how do you get a job at Ernst & Young? And they talk about the questions they ask and, what classes you have to take. But they said, as a female, can we have somebody talk about, work-life balance? Can we have somebody talk about, I'm a female and I don't ever want to get married, or I want to get married, but I'm going to make more money than my husband, or I'm not going to be the one that goes to the T-ball games because I'm going to be traveling for work. And so we created a whole speaker series around bringing in women professionals to have those open, honest conversations with our students. And so it's called Women in Industry. Doreen's a part of that. Sandy Mervosh has done a wonderful job. And we, twice a month, have various conversations, aimed at women, but it's absolutely men should be a part of these. And it's more focused on, the opportunities that are unique to females and, how they can really thrive. And so another great thing with the sales center is my female students came to me and said, I just would love to have help role-playing, asking for that raise, right?
Yeah.
Or how do I deal with the fact that I know that guy is making more money than me and we have the same duties?
Yeah.
And so those are things that we're gonna do as well. So once again, it's trying to help our students, but I'm hoping all of these initiatives, whether it's in social equity, sales center, women in industry, the veterans, my overarching goal is to try to help our students, but then also really try to make a difference in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and that's been something that's so appealing to kind of hear you tell this over the last couple of years as we've talked on side conversations about everything. And again, this is the big difference is it's not just coming to get an education. It's coming to get life experience. Yep. It's coming to get an understanding of how to navigate life because, there's a million things that I didn't know and still don't know going through life. And the more you're prepared for that, it starts with the educational system that you go through.
Yeah, and one of the things I always say is in our business school, we're not afraid to have conversations that most business schools would never touch.
Yeah.
Because, students have to be well-rounded, right? They have to understand, why does the Supreme Court, matter? Right, all these voting laws. Why does it matter? Why should you care? And I'm taking politics out of it. It's these are the things that you should care about, right. And here's why, because it affects you.
Yeah, well, I think so many people are so negligent or unaware or just don't realize the significance of these things. And even you mentioned the getting a lease for an apartment or managing a credit card. I had no idea, and I'm fortunate to have two parents that really helped me with things, and I still didn't understand other than, hey, don't get a credit card. You don't need one.
Right.
Like, well, maybe I did need one. Maybe I did need you to show me that.
Right.
So and a lot of people that get into those problems early on, unfortunately, never dig out of those or, damage a significant amount of their time in the early stages of their life that could impact them forever.
Yeah, and I tell folks, I'm not saying don't live your life in your 20s, but if you can be fiscally prudent in your 20s, that can really set you up for your 30s and 40s, right? And so many folks are in their 40s and 50s and still digging out of holes that they created in their 20s.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's credit card debt. A lot of it's, well, I bought that shiny new car, right, because I got my first job. I'm not saying don't treat yourself, but what was wrong with the car you had?
Yeah.
Right? Or, I bought a 3-bedroom apartment. Well, it's just you, right?
Yep.
So, those are things that, you just kind of demonstrate the power of compounding interest, right?
For sure.
And APR and all that stuff and the adverse effect that it can have.
Yeah. And kind of, getting into conclusion here, Point Park coming up in the fall. You guys are back to...
We're back. Students are coming back to campus. We're excited to have them. Faculty, I'm excited to see our faculty back in person.
Are you doing virtual stuff at all?
No, we're going to have it all back on campus.
Good.
What makes Point Park great, what makes the business school great is how much faculty care about students. We know so much about them and their families, and it was just so hard with COVID not to be able to have that personal connection. And we get so many great opportunities that come across our desk for internships and co-ops, and it's hard. It was hard to try to, communicate in a little square box on a Zoom. We want to get back to kind of our bread and butter, which is, knowing students and being able to to grab David in the hallway and say, David, you're applying for this because it can change your life, and here you go. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what I've always loved about our school is our faculty are that committed to make time like that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on and taking the day. I know you have a busy schedule, busy life with everything going on, and I appreciate the friendship first and foremost with everything. It's exciting to see where we've come, and hopefully the future continues to be bright for just our friendship and relationship. And however I can help out Point Park, obviously I'm always there for you. So thanks for being here. This was an awesome episode, and excited to kind of get this out to everybody because it gives a different perspective, and it also gives a perspective on an amazing university that's in our backyard. That I don't think a lot of people are aware of what's actually happening there. So congratulations to you, the commitment that you've put into this, and I'm excited to kind of watch these changes flourish over the next several years. So I appreciate you, Steve. Thanks so much, and we thank you guys for listening, and we'll check you next week as well. Talk to you soon.